What is up? So today I'm going to show you how to actually build any chord shape across the fretboard without memorizing hundreds of chord shapes. Without memorizing any chord shape actually. Okay? So when it comes to actually playing by ear, right? A lot of the times, we're going to have to add chords to the music that we're playing. So what we actually need to do is we need to actually learn how to build those chords, okay, so that we can put them into our arrangement, we can put it into our cover, okay, that we're playing by ear, right? So it's a very important skill to actually have because we want to be able to add in those chords into our arrangement. But it's not just that, because a lot of the times songs force us to actually go further down the fretboard. And we never want to be just stuck playing the same old boring chords on the same boring places. Okay, so this is definitely a very, very important skill that you need to have in your arsenal. If in any of the concepts here you get a little confused or there's some stuff that you don't know yet or you feel like you don't know yet, I actually have my chord freedom map for that. Okay, and what I'll do for you is in my freedom map, I'll actually give you a simple visual, okay, to build any voicing from scratch. And I'll actually go deeper into these concepts so that you can understand them. So if you want that, stick around because I'll actually be giving that away at the end of this video for free. So if you actually don't know me, my name is Jamil Valavinos. I am the co-founder of fluentinguitar.com. And I help self-taught guitar players stop relying on tabs and start creating their own fingerstyle creative covers. Even if they can't play by ear yet, you have no clue on how music theory actually works. Okay? So the first thing is you have to understand that the simplest form of a chord. So the simplest form of a chord is simply a triad. Okay? A triad, why is it called a triad? Because it's just 3 notes. Okay? It's just 3 notes. Okay? Now the second thing is we actually have to understand, it's like, okay, well, this is a triad, right? It's called G major. It's a G major chord, right? Meaning it's actually coming from a key. It's coming from the G major scale. Okay? So, meaning if we have the whole G major scale, if we have the G major scale, we can create a chord, right? We can create a G major chord off of that scale, off of this key that we're on. Understand? Right? So this is where this is basically just knowing where is our chord coming from. All right? It's kind of like reverse engineering. We're kind of taking the pieces down, right? And putting them on the table. Okay? So here's actually where our third step comes in, right? So we have to get our G major scale in order to actually figure out the notes of our G major chord. Understand? Right? So in order to get our G major scale, we're simply going to use a pattern. We're going to use a whole half step pattern. Okay? This is what people call intervals, all right? It's not hard, okay? It's not hard at all. So the most simple thing I can teach you right now is a whole step and a half step. So for example, if we start on G and we do a whole step, we go 1, 2. We go 2 frets over, right? So we're going 2 frets over from our previous note, okay? So intervals is simply just the distance between notes, okay? So we're going a whole step, all right? So if we do whole step, we go 1 fret over, 2 frets over. If we do a half step, we would be doing 1 fret over. All right, so if we start on G, half step, that's 1 fret over. Start on G, whole step, 1, 2, right? And we would land there on A, right? So to actually now, make out our chord, okay, we actually have to get the notes of our G major scale, okay, with this pattern that I'm talking to you about, right? And right now, you're gonna see how everything is gonna connect together. So here's how the pattern goes. We go G, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. So there we go. Those are our G major scale notes, right? So, right, our notes would be G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and back to G. Okay? So that's how it goes, right? So now if we want to get our G major triad, which is the simplest form of a chord, right? We want to get those notes, right? We need to go down our scale to find our chord. And here's how it's gonna go. So I'm gonna put it on like a little bit of theory terms, okay? So remember, we're trying to build a G major triad. All right, so our G major triad consists of 3 notes, okay? These 3 notes, right? In this musical scenario, okay, where we have our key, okay, our G major key, our G major scale, right? We have our root, we have our major third, and we have our perfect fifth. Okay? So this is what these notes are called. All right? These notes are coming from our G major scale. So basically the name of the intervals are telling us where they are in the scale. Okay? So our root, okay, is G. Okay, because our chord is a G major. So we have a root G. So when we use our pattern, we go G, root, and the third note would be, okay, so we go whole step, our second note, we go whole step again, that's our third note. So our third note, our major third would be our B note. This is our B note. So we have G and B already, right? Now we have to find our fifth note. Understand? So if we go G, right? So if we go G, right? Whole step, okay? And then we go half step, and we go whole step again, right? So there we go. D would be our fifth note. Okay, so because we have, look, G is our root, then we go, that's gonna be our second, right? But we're trying to look for a third. We go third, that's gonna be our B. We go fourth, that's gonna be our C. We go fifth, that's gonna be our D note. Okay, so you see how that works? You see how our G major chord is basically formed from our G major scale, okay? From our root, third, and fifth, right? So basically from our first note, third note, and fifth note of our scale. So this is how it is for a major scale, right? So now what you would do, okay, is basically repeat those 3 notes, okay, all across the fretboard. So if we have our standard, you know, our standard G major chord, right? If we turn that into our triad, okay, it's our notes G, B, which is our third, G being our root, and then fifth, it's gonna be our D, right? So we go right here, we go D note, G, G, okay? And we need B, right? All right, so there we go. So that would be like our triad, right? That's the simplest form of our chord. Technically, we could also, you know, we have B right here as well. That's also our G major chord, or G major triad, right? And you know how when we have our standard G major chord, you know, there's more notes to it, right? So what about those notes? Well, guess what? Those notes are basically just repeated notes of our triad, okay? They're just repeated notes of our triad. So all that we would do is just repeat those notes. So if we have G, B, and D, we would repeat G. So we have another G up here, you see? Okay, and guess what? If we use our open strings, this is G as well. And if we use D right here, right? The open string D, boom. There we go. So it's just repeated. So it's just our GBD, right, being repeated. So all that we would do now from here is basically put these 3 notes just anywhere you want in the fretboard, literally anywhere you want. If we go all the way down here, right, on the 7th fret, okay, we have a B on that high E string, and we have a D on that high G string, and then on our 8th fret, on that high B string, right there, we have a G. Okay, so boom, there we go. Okay, so you see, we can just repeat notes all across the fretboard like that, those 3 notes. Okay, and there you go. You can build that G major chord all across the fretboard, and it's the same for every other chord, right? Now obviously, if this would be in our minor scale, it changes because our minor scale has a different whole and half step pattern. But the fact that it's our root, our 3rd, and our 5th, it's gonna remain the same. Okay. Now, for example, like the interval names would change, right? It would now be a minor 3rd instead of a major 3rd, right? Because now we're in the minor scale. Our 5th would stay as perfect 5th though. Okay. Now the reason why that happens is also because the distance between our notes changes, right? That's why also the name changes. That's why it's not major 3rd, it's minor 3rd, right? Now, how and why does this actually work? Well, first of all, you see how clearly if we're following our pattern and everything, we can easily just identify what are the notes of our chord, you know? Like without having to memorize any chord shape. Like you can literally just build it by yourself. So when we play by ear and we're like, you know, we're trying to test out, okay, is this a G major chord, right? We don't have to have the G major chord remember. We can literally just build it. And what if it's taking us a little bit more down the fretboard? How are we actually going to be able to move that over here? You know, if we want to move it over here, we need to know how to do that. If not, we're just going to be stuck in the same old position, you know, which actually limits our creativity. Okay. So it's really important just to be able to also identify, you know, when you're trying to identify a chord by ear and stuff like that. Or when you simply, you know, the song, you're hearing the pitch doesn't really sound like, you know, over here. It sounds more on the higher side, right? So that's where, you know, we would want to go and build it over here. Okay. So with that said, if you want me to go a little bit more deeper on this, okay, and if you want to unlock the full fretboard and stop relying on chord shapes, okay, we go into the minor, we go into all that stuff, okay. I'll show you my chord freedom map, okay, and I'll also give you a simple visual, right, to basically build any voicing from scratch, right, put in all the patterns and stuff so that you can do it yourself, okay. So if you want my chord freedom map, comment the word map and I'll send it to you. See you soon. God bless you.